Namaskar to all the viewers across the country. I am Sanjula Haldar, Deputy Director in the Directorate of Income Tax PRPNP at Mayur Bhavan, Delhi. Welcome to another session from SAMVAAD. As part of SAMVAAD series, today we bring to you discussion on the topic Issues pertaining to faceless assessment. The Income Tax Department is taking revolutionary steps to ease tax compliance, ensure transparency and faster disposal of cases. And faceless assessment is a big step in this direction. For the discussion, we have with us today Shri Ashish Abrol, Principal Commissioner of Income Tax, Patiala. In a career spanning for 29 years in the Indian Revenue Services, Sir has handled multiple assignments in assessment, investigation, systems, appeals, tribunal, CBDT, and on deputation to Enforcement Directorate. Sir has been associated with setting up faceless assessment under NEAC or NAFAC, that is National Faceless Assessment Center, right from inception till January 2023. Sir is presently holding the post of Principal Commissioner of Income Tax, Patiala. Thank you, sir, for accepting our invitation to the SAMVAAD episode today on the topic Issues pertaining to faceless assessment.
Thank you and namaskar viewers. Thank you.
Sir, firstly, I would like to ask you how a taxpayer comes to know that his or her case has been selected for faceless assessment proceedings.
If a case moves to faceless, the taxpayer gets an intimation. The intimation comes on the taxpayer's account on the e-filing website of the department. Along with the intimation, a real-time alert or a message goes to his registered email ID and the registered mobile number. By registered, I mean what is registered on the e-filing portal. So, primarily what is very important is that your registered email ID and your registered mobile number needs to be updated. It needs to be current.
Thank you so much, sir, for explaining that to our viewers. Sir, could you please tell our viewers who signs the various notices that are issued under faceless assessment proceedings?
This is very important because sometimes taxpayers look at their notice and they don't find a name of somebody signing it. So, for faceless assessment as it exists today, all notices are signed by the institutional signature of the unit. So, it could be assessment unit, verification unit, technical unit or review unit. So, it will be signed by the unit. This is to ensure that who underlies the unit is masked and not known to the taxpayer.
So, could you please explain to our viewers whether the entire communication under faceless assessment proceedings is digital?
So, as per law, faceless assessment basically the only interface between the department and the taxpayer is meant to be digital. So, it's meant to be email through the e-filing portal, which all notices go on the e-filing portal, replies come on that. So, that is the main source.
Thank you, sir. Sir, our viewers may be having a doubt as to where the assessment unit or verification unit require further information after the taxpayer has replied to the notice.
Taxpayer gets a particular notice and he responds thereto on the e-filing portal by giving a detailed reply, but may not be complete for the unit looking at the case. So, in such instances, he will get a further communication. He will get a notice. So, these communications would again come on the e-filing account of the taxpayer on the portal, and similarly the taxpayer will get an alert on the email ID and on the registered mobile number.
Thank you for explaining that to our viewers, sir. Sir, now I would like to ask you how a taxpayer can ensure that there is seamless communication under faceless assessment proceedings.
Since most of our communication is online on the e-filing portal, it is extremely important that your credentials there, your mobile number and your email ID on the e-filing portal is current, is updated. That's one. And second is that you access the e-filing portal from time to time. You need to access it on a regular basis.
Sir, could you please elaborate for our viewers what a taxpayer needs to do under faceless assessment proceedings?
You see, typically people are now aware of how to work on systems and online. So the notice which comes in the e-filing portal, it has detailed instructions. The detailed instructions tell the taxpayer what exactly he has to do, where he has to reply, where he has to upload the reply, put the attachments. So they need to follow the instructions properly and ensure that the reply and the response is complete and timely. So if you respond in a timely fashion and in a complete fashion, the number of transactions or the number of iterations between the department and the taxpayer will come down.
Thank you, sir. Sir, could you please explain to our viewers what will be the consequence when a taxpayer does not comply to the notice issued under faceless assessment proceedings?
A very important question, because the only way a taxpayer can respond or correspond with the department is by replying to the notice. And the reply to the notice has to come online. So if the reply doesn't come, the department will have to decide on the basis of what information they have. Now, what results is what is called a best judgment assessment, an assessment based on what the department has, without the benefit of the explanation of the taxpayer. This could be prejudicial to the taxpayer, this could be problematic for the taxpayer. The other problem which can happen is that if you're not responding, there are certain penalties.
Thank you, sir. So, for the benefit of our viewers, could you please explain what a taxpayer can do to update their records?
Yeah. Things don't remain constant. We need to update our records. And since the only way of communication, I repeat, between the taxpayer and the department is digital, so the taxpayer needs to periodically log in into his e-filing account and check whether the credentials are correct. So when you log in, the first page you see contains the credentials. It contains your email ID, your mobile number, your address. Now all three need to be corrected and updated if they are not correct. You have a benefit of 2 mobile numbers and 2 emails. One could be that of the taxpayer and the other could be that of a chartered accountant or accountant or an employee.
Thank you, sir. So, could you please explain what is the mode of communication under faceless assessment proceedings?
As I've said earlier, the main mode of communication is digital, and by digital I mean the e-filing website. So all communication, notices and replies are to be done on the e-filing portal, and you also get communication on email and mobile number to help you use the e-filing portal. There are instances where something is to be done physically, but those are rare.
So, for the benefit of our viewers, could you please tell us whether the verification unit can carry out a physical inquiry or physical verification?
Yeah, that's important. You see, as we understand that most of the communication between the taxpayer and the department in faceless assessment is digital, there are exceptions. In the rare cases where the case requires a physical inquiry, where it is not possible, it is not feasible, technologically feasible to do it digitally, in those cases, the verification unit can, after permission from a principal commissioner of income tax, carry out physical verification and physical inquiry.
Thank you, sir. So, under the faceless assessment proceedings, can an SSC request for adjournment and seek further time to reply to the notices issued to them?
See, the advantage of faceless assessment is that the taxpayer can do anytime, anywhere response. He can respond from the comfort of his home at midnight, at 10 in the night. So therefore, the adjournment or a request for a change of date should be done in the rarest of rare cases, and it should be done online. It should be done on the e-filing portal. There is a designated place where you can raise the request for adjournment. But it should be very limited and asked only if necessary.
Thank you, sir. Sir, under the faceless assessment proceedings, can an assessee request for a personal hearing?
The assessee can request for a personal hearing after the assessee receives a show cause notice. A show cause notice is to be issued if the department is taken any view which is not favorable to the taxpayer, which is prejudicial to the taxpayer. In all such cases, a show cause notice is issued. Taxpayer replies to the show cause notice. The taxpayer can seek personal hearing. On the designated space, there is a button where he asks for personal hearing, and the personal hearing is granted through video conference.
Thank you, sir. Sir, how can an assessee raise grievances under faceless assessment proceedings?
See, there are a number of mechanisms for raising grievances. However, for faceless assessment, for a focused response, for an informed response, the taxpayer needs to send an email to the Samadhan email IDs. The Samadhan email ID for faceless assessment is samadhan.faceless.assessment@incometax.gov.in. For penalty, there is a separate Samadhan ID. So if you send your email to the Samadhan email ID, it will be responded to immediately. All grievances which are sent on the Samadhan ID are ticketed, followed up and resolved.
Thank you so much, sir. So, what option does an assessee have to contest the assessment orders passed?
The faceless assessment is largely data driven. However, if a taxpayer finds that the assessment is unjust or incorrect or something has missed out, then the options available are that the taxpayer can file an appeal before the Commissioner of Appeals, which is to be done online, or the taxpayer can file for a rectification application. The rectification application has to be filed on e-Nivaran on the e-filing website. So the rectification application needs to be filed where some computation error or some basic mistake has been made. And lastly, the taxpayer can also file a revision application for their jurisdictional principal commissioners of income tax.
Thank you, sir, for patiently explaining to all of us the issues pertaining to faceless assessment. We hope this session gave you the necessary insights into issues pertaining to faceless assessment and how a taxpayer can respond to a notice received under faceless assessment, how a taxpayer can raise grievances under faceless assessment proceedings, and the consequence faced by a taxpayer when he or she does not comply to a notice issued under faceless assessment proceedings. With this, we come to the end of today's session on issues pertaining to faceless assessment. I thank you all for joining us on this episode. Do follow us on our social media handles on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube and Twitter, and keep watching for updates on more educational and informative content. Until the next time from SAMVAAD, thank you and Jai Hind.